All right, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast here with me and E.
Yeah, we're
You know what
back.
it is?
Slight delay. We're happy to get back going and get it uploaded and get it in a little more frequently. So thanks for bearing with us. If you listened to one of the first two, thanks. Thanks for giving us a run and
Yes. Thank you for listening if you
onward
did.
and upward. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we just wanted to, you know, we're about, I think between like 15-ish games into the year. So
Yeah. Week 5, week 6, I think we're on right now.
yep. So
Pretty
we
early in the
wanted to
season, but
yeah, just discuss like some of the things that we totally weren't expecting. And I think um the most obvious one would just be that Utah as a whole has been unbelievable. So what do you think about that, Marco?
I was very surprised,
Yeah.
as probably most people were. I mean, I'm most surprised about the way Jordan Clarkson is playing. As a sixth man, I feel like it's a little tough to start in that role and have that be your role for so long and then be thrusted into a starting position in a tough conference. But they've lived up to the hype of, you know, the pieces they had, like Mike Conley, Laurie Markkinen. It's interesting how they've worked together. I mean, Mike Conley's up there in assists. I think he might be top 5. So when you're looking at the scores that they had, they're relatively low level name people when you're talking NBA stars, but still very skillful. And it's interesting to see that them play at a high level and beat pretty good teams. I'm gonna pull up who they've beat so far, but I'm pretty sure they beat Phoenix
Maybe Phoenix, yeah.
and
Good one to start off.
sore subject, but they beat the Grizzlies twice, and obviously the Lakers a few times, the Hawks. So I mean, just showing out against teams that have the star power and are staples in the league. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
for sure. Kind of building off that, I think one thing that really kind of like struck me about this team was like 5 games in, like Malik Beasley was like Laurie Markkinen's an all-star, and just like having that, like, these guys are first year teammates coming in from separate deals, like Laurie from the Don trade, and then Malik was obviously in the Gobert deal. And just
Yeah,
like have that sort of like camaraderie and like belief is just like, okay, you can tell all these guys are like bought in, and it's just like, honestly, I think it's an oversight on like most analysis. And like, obviously when you're trading away like two of these like all-star players, the gut reaction is be like, okay, they're blowing it up. But when you look at what they actually have, these these dudes are all like role player, like highly capable role players. So it's like
yeah,
all they're missing is that name and that like big star. But like
right.
honestly, if Utah can like at all keep pace, Markkinen's a shoe in. And then who knows what happens? Because like I don't, again, like this team's off to a phenomenal start. I don't see them winning anything. And then you have Danny as the GM. Is like, who knows? Maybe he's just gonna parlay that like all-star season into like more draft picks and stuff like that. Like let's not write it off. Like, but right now it's a really good story. And like kind of like you said with Clarkson, the past couple of years dating back to him being on Utah and Cleveland before that, his job was to just come in and huck. And now we're seeing him become like a full playmaker again, that really we haven't seen him really showcase since like when he was on those young Laker teams with like D'Angelo and stuff. So it's
Yeah,
it's kind of cool to like see that come full circle, and like come back into the starting role really is cool.
yeah, yeah. I think Laurie's playing at such a high level. He's had so many good plays and shots. It'd be interesting to see him emerge as like an all-star candidate this year.
Yeah,
That would be pretty crazy if they kept pace, like you said.
agree. I was
I know.
watching the Utah Lakers game from probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in the first half, like AD, well, that was like one of his better games at that point in the season. He was like really like imposing his will on Laurie, like just because he has like the mass. And but like in the second half, like Laurie did not back down, and he like I think he had like 12 or 14 points like in the third quarter, and ended up like Utah won the game. And like it was just like such a great like, because at that point in the year it's still kind of like, is he gonna fall off, like is he gonna kind of fold to like these household names? But no, like honestly, he's been great. Like he cooked the Suns, like respectfully, he did. Like so, it's just great to see these surprises like we're talking about. Like
Yeah.
we had seen glimpses of him being good in Chicago and more recently Cleveland, but like this is just totally unlike anything anyone around the league coverage wise was predicting.
No, I would like to look back and see where they were ranked preseason.
Yeah, it can't be high.
No,
Like
nowhere near the top.
so
Um, and another real surprise that you and I were talking about, Sacramento, sitting at 5 right now. They're on a really good win streak, and I just see De'Aaron Fox really owning that top spot on the team.
yeah.
As much as they've been accustomed to losing for a long time, I like to see that them come out pretty hard this season and not giving up like they maybe have, maybe haven't in previous seasons. But how are you feeling about their start?
Yeah, I think like something that kind of stuck with me is that I saw like a brief clip from like one of those ESPN, I think it was like Get Up or NBA Today or whatever, and he came on and they're asking him about, like what's the aspirations for this team? And he's just like, yeah, like a success for us would be making the playoffs. And like he's not, I think he's like towing the line well of being a realist and
Right,
realizing what the group can accomplish versus being like, okay, like no one's counting us in, like the year doesn't
right.
really matter. But one thing he
Yeah.
said that stuck with me was he's, I think, the longest tenured Kings player on the team. It's only his, I think, fifth, maybe sixth season, and it's like the rest of this is a totally new group. So he's like, I know the burden of like losing in Sacramento, but a lot of these other guys don't. So it's like it's a chance to have a new beginning. And I think Sabonis coming over at the end of last year, a lot of people have criticized the Halliburton trade, and for good reason. He's a an incredible player and has a
Yeah.
massive upside, but De'Aaron is a great player himself. So if you can build around him, not really have two ball dominant guys. Like Kevin Herter is playing a tremendous role on that team, and then off the bench
Unbelievable.
you have Malik Monk, who's doing a lot of the same things. Where he was one of the bright spots for the Lakers last year. So
Yeah.
and when they have Davian Mitchell, he's like one of the like best defenders in the league. Like forget lockdown like young prospect defenders. Like he's guarding a lot of these good, star players when he's in the game. So it's great to see, them actually having some success, being fifth in the West as of this Thanksgiving week, is definitely, I did not see that coming.
Yeah. They're lighting the beam.
Yeah, yeah, that's so funny how that's like taking off.
It's so funny. I love it. Like I'm rooting for them. I truly am.
Yeah,
And one more team before we get off here. This topic is I mean we can lump them both together quickly here, but Portland and OKC were another
yeah,
honorable mentions here for surprises. Shy really putting the team on his back. I really like the combination of Shy and Josh Giddey.
yeah,
He's a very good. I just like the way he plays. He's a very good playmaker. I love the way he gets his teammates involved. He's just the type of guy that I love watching. And
yeah,
Shy's just, oh my God, he's making the most unbelievable step back threes, and like his shot is so interesting too. Like, how do you feel about him kind of shooting it a little bit like forward, then like with some arc on it, like kind of like the traditional form? It's kind of interesting.
It's hard to argue with the results. Like, let's leave it at that. Like, he's cooking. He's an unbelievable talent, and one of the things going into the year was kind of like Shea's already on his like super max like rookie extension deal. Him being like the jewel of like the Paul George trade. But a lot of people were kind of questioning like how his age like factors in with the timeline of the rest of the team, with Giddy, I think, being 19, maybe 20, them obviously just grabbing Chet, and then Chet immediately missing this year. I think, a lot of people were reasonably thinking it hasn't been out of the ordinary for them to like tank for these like generational prospects. So like I was expecting them to kind of be in the bottom dweller with like, for the West, Houston right now, and then like Detroit, Orlando, and Charlotte has gotten off to a terrible start without LaMelo too.
Yeah,
So I was expecting them to be, really down there, but like the way Shea's been playing is like it, I was listening to, I think it was like Bill Simmons. It's like he's putting the like untradeable label on himself, like the way he's performed, and like bringing the guys, the group, the cast alongside him up is just, it's amazing.
it
And
is.
props to him. They've been playing well. I am a fan of Giddy as well. He definitely needs to get a little bit better defensively, but his playmaking is great. Like the worst game I saw him play this season was against the Celtics, and he had like a stretch of like a couple turnovers. But I also just think when you're on a young team and you have a high usage rate, like turnovers come with that. Like,
Yeah,
he's,
absolutely.
he's a sophomore. Like you can't expect these dudes to be lights out like every night. But yeah, his ceiling is as high as ever. So I think, yeah, the dynamic with him and Shea is really like it's something to keep your eye on.
Yeah. I think if they make the playoffs past like even the play-in, I think he should be considered for MVP, honestly. If he gets them
Yeah,
up there. The way he's
yeah,
averaging, the way he's carrying his team, you take him off that team, like you said, they're last place. They're
exactly.
garbage.
And it's just one of
Unbelievable.
those things where it's like, who knows if he'd actually win that, but like he's got to be an all-star. Like
He
with
has to be.
where the team is. And again, it's like the West is very deep. So what they were 11th or 12th right now at like 7 and 10, but it's like, did anyone expect them to even be at that level? I didn't.
I
So,
didn't. Definitely not.
and then
No.
yeah, going back to Portland, and then before we move on to the next stuff, but I think they have been, exceeding expectations as well, and kind of like the defining moment for me was like Dame missed time really early in the year, and they didn't really miss a beat. Like they won a couple more games. They actually beat Phoenix with Simons and Dame out. So I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like, teams come in and they're like, oh, they're missing Dame. Like, you kind of don't give them the credit, but then it's like you look at these players around them and they're playing really well. Simons in particular, Jeremy Grant's having a hell of a year too. So it's good to see,
Yeah.
them be a contender, and just kind of keeping the ball rolling. So hopefully they can stay healthy and kind of shake things up a bit, because it was sad to see them, not really in the talks at all last year.
I know. And I do I'm interested to see them play a long stretch with the backcourt of Lillard and Simons, because they're both very talented offensive players. I'm interested to see how that, works
Yeah.
for a
And
long
honestly,
stretch.
they kind of remind me of like Utah if they had a star. Cause like when you start looking at these other guys, like Josh Hart, he hit that crazy game winner against the Heat.
Yeah.
the young buck, Shaden Sharp, he's playing really well. And then they have guys like Gary Payton.
Yep. Justice Winslow.
Yeah, all these guys are just like plug and play guys, and
Yeah.
it's been working like tremendously for them. So
Yeah.
that's it's
The
really exciting to like see players like that. And like I know with Shaden Sharp, he was like injured in the summer league, and after him like missing time at Kentucky, or I guess he chose to sit out. Everyone, wants him to be a bust and all that, and it's just like let the young kid play. Like he's been playing well, so it just it's another thing that like the fan loves to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So next up here, we're gonna just go briefly into, how we're doing as far as our team goes. To remind people, if this is the first time you're listening, Ethan's a diehard Phoenix Suns, and I'm a Raptors fan. So Ethan, you want to start, man, or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. So with the Raptors, they're sitting at seventh right now, currently, to date. Their record right now is fairly where I would expect it to be, right at over 500. So, I'm not really too concerned, especially with, you know, Siakam, like we talked about, being out the past 8 games. They've won and lost a few of those. So, I mean, if Siakam was playing, obviously we're better. And maybe some of these games that are closer that we lose, like the other night we lost to the Hawks on the most incredible inbounds play you'll
That
ever see in
was
basketball.
wild. Yeah.
I mean, watching it, even though my team just lost, I was like, that was an amazingly
Yeah.
coordinated play.
I
I just,
saw the highlight on Twitter, and I was like, because obviously like the camera's like spanning from the inbound, you don't even
yeah,
see where the fifth guy who catches the lob is. I'm
until
forgetting.
it's in the basket. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name. He's a young. I
It,
think he's a rookie.
Griffin,
Yeah,
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 from Duke.
Griffin. And
He
he,
played really well. He had like 8 or 10 points in overtime. He played unbelievable that game. But the one thing that I'm really proud, I guess, of the Raptors and how we've been playing so far this year is our defense. Our defensively, I think we're playing very well. We have 5 guys averaging 1 steal or higher. Um, we're opponent ranked for points per game is 10th. I feel like that's very good considering the pieces that we have. I wouldn't consider them great defenders besides really like maybe you consider Scotty Barnes because he's a big
yeah,
time defender and then OG.
definitely.
But I mean OG's up there. He's averaging 2.5 steals and he's just becoming something that I'm interested to see if he really takes the next step in being an all-star because he's hovering at that mid like average kind of points per game and defensively. But if he's that great of a two-way player, kind of like a Kawhi, it would be interesting to see if he can load up on offense. But I mean, as far as our record goes, I'm not surprised. I'm fairly happy with how we've been playing defensively. It's more so just like I said in the podcast before, it's establishing the like go-to person on offense. And like with Siakam out, it's a little tough. Van Fleet's a little bit more like shy with the ball. Gary Trent's like a good shooter, but I just we need someone to really like go to in crunch time, I guess, or someone to get us like a lot. And Siakam's starting to fall into that. It's just like got to keep him healthy. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. He's battled a
yeah,
lot of injuries, but I think Fred is like a pretty. He's not scared of the moment. Like I don't know if you would want him to be your like go-to guy down the stretch, but I feel like he's played well in big moments, like kind of historically.
historically he definitely has. I remember so many big threes in the finals run that he had.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is now. I feel like maybe last season and this season. I mean, I'll scratch that because last season he actually did take up a lot of the shots, especially in the playoffs with our series with Philly. But I don't know. This season, I feel like he's deferring a lot more. Like in the Hawks game, for example, the last game that I watched him play, in the last moments, it really was Scotty Barnes just like dribbling and trying to get him on a mismatch, which
Yeah,
like I understand he's a physical guy and can back people down and get a nice easy layup or a foul. But like I would rather put him on the block or like the short corner and dish to him and have him go up than to be like handling the ball from the top of the key while Fred's in the corner kind of waiting for a three. It was kind of like
yeah,
a
I
weird
get that. I
call.
think part of that might just be like you want to get these like experiences in like the dude who's going to be the franchise hands like this early in his career, so it's like not a shell shocking moment when that handoff is like official because I
Yeah.
think Fred is maybe like treading water to see like what's going to happen with him being an all-star last year and stuff like that, but there's still so many different things that could happen with this team overall being really, really young. So
Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's probably just something to keep an eye on, but I definitely like I see what you're saying. Like that is frustrating when it's like you have playmakers and he is one, but it's not as like it's more one dimensional because you're not really nervous about him pulling up. So it's easy like in the clutch to kind of like sag and like pack the paint, which is like really where he's thriving. It is kind of funny because it's like all game. That's how he's like playing is like finding the open spaces and doing the cutting and all the little things that like get him open looks. And then at the end to like kind of have him play like the point forward is like switching from like what got you there in the first place.
Yeah. I just, I don't know. Maybe it's just my traditional way of thinking of a forward slash like power forward, you could call him, that really isn't an outside shooting threat. Like
Right, right.
you're not worried about Scotty pulling three in your face, like
Yeah.
truly, and you can contest it pretty easily. But with Fred, like he has the ability to do like the Dame or the Kyrie, like step back, create space, launch a rainbow shot, Steph Curry rainbow shot. Like he can do that, and he has that ability. And I feel like in those crunch time moments when you need a bucket, and he's quick off the ball, like he's quick with the ball to get to the rim. I just like, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a perfect scenario for me. Like you got a decently good shooters in OG and Gary Trent. You got Pascal and Scotty on the blocks, and you're just go to the rim and just dish or score.
Yeah.
They just weren't doing that. I don't know. It was I don't think it necessarily has any implication on like the this one game for like the whole rest of the season. Obviously, we're trying to like figure out how we fit in with each other after one season of like kind of being together, and with people coming in and out for injuries, it's a little tough to mold that.
100%.
So
100%.
tough. But let's move on to the Suns. How we feeling sitting two in the West currently?
Yeah. I'd say I'm feeling pretty good where we're at right now. Just the issue is like the Cam Johnson injury is really frustrating. Like in general, it sucks, right? But then
Right.
we're severely thin at the wing right now because Jay is like, still in that holdout where it's I almost am like, should we just if he's willing, bring him back for now because for the next I think Cam elected to do the shorter thing for his knee. So it's only gonna be 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of my other good friends about this, and I was just like so bummed out. And his response was, "You'd rather have it happen now than in March or April, where then he's going to miss the playoffs." And it's like, okay, fine, silver lining, which is probably why the J thing isn't going to happen because he realizes his days are numbered if he comes back. So I don't know.
Yeah.
There's been a couple trade rumors, I think, with like the Heat or Wizards possibly being interested. So it'll be interesting to see what the return of that comes to be. But
Right.
definitely we could use another wing. Like Torrey Craig being the starter. He's a great I think he's a great role player. But I don't know about like the starter. Like he
Yeah.
can hit a couple of threes and he's a good defender, but it's just you miss like the lights out that we had from Cam. Like that, it's so hard to replace that. But
In the defense too. I mean,
yeah,
he's a
exactly.
strong defender and he can guard 1 through 4, I would say. Like honestly.
But yeah, we were off to a blazing start. Since CP3 has missed
Yeah.
probably 2 or 3 weeks. We haven't been great, but we've at least been in games and our overall record hasn't faltered too much. Or I guess I should say the rest of the West has kind of simmered down as well. So we're not,
Yeah.
like, falling in the standings, which is at least good. In the earlier podcast, I was talking about how I would be comfortable being like a 3 or 4 or even 5 seed, not, pushing all the chips in to get home court and then the guys being gassed at the end of that. So
True.
if we can keep afloat with Chris on the bench, like cool. And like we're getting more reps for guys like Campaign and Bridges. I'm really impressed with his progression because although he's been, steadily improving each year, like this year he's really been, more with the ball in his hand. And, I think that was one of the alarming moments, at the end of that Mavs series where Chris was like clearly laboring and they were just doubling Book. It's like they had no other playmakers. So
Yeah.
like to watch guys like this make that progression at like pivotal moments is at least encouraging. So I'm excited about that. Um yeah, and I guess just because this is the first episode we've actually recorded since the start of the season, it was just so good to beat the Mavs on opening night because dude, they were down like 20, like at half,
Yeah.
and I was like, we can't come out like this. And then, you're kind of like casually watching the lead starts, getting chipped at. And then it was just great to see that, just as like a little like fist pump victory.
Absolutely.
And then I guess the last thing I'll say about the Suns was I think Book's been like overall really good, but to watch him in that game against the Jazz, they got down like it was something like 3 or 4 to like 18, like out the gate. And then
Wow.
they're slowly like chipping back throughout the game and like Book finished with like 49. It's just like honestly such a rare moment to see his usage be so high like that. Like it felt like one of those like 2019, 2018 Suns games where it's like he's just putting them up and like
Only
just,
dude.
just to
Yeah.
see it is honestly like kind of it's like nostalgic and like
Yeah.
obviously he was playing really well and like props to the Jazz, like they beat us, so it is what
Yeah.
it is. But got a game against the Lakers tonight, so that's always a fun one. I'll be
Gonna,
watching.
gonna
uh
snap the 3 game from the
yeah,
Lakers.
yeah, the 3 game, which might we add, was against like the depleted Nets and uh, 2 other teams. I was just talking with Calvin about it, but I'm excited for tonight always. But AD, I will say, has been stepping his game up.
For
I'm
sure.
always one of the first to call out AD. Like, he's made of glass, but he's been averaging like 30 in like double digit boards like in the past in this like successful stretch.
Yeah.
So good for him, like honestly, because some of these guys are super talented and then when they have to play the role on the team, it's just like you don't see like who they used to be. So good for him.
Yeah. Playing pure big man basketball too, just in the post, getting down and dirty with it. I mean, it is good to see him step that up. All right, so last subject we're gonna really hit on for this episode is a couple of players that we're really excited about so far during the season, just for their performances or just align with them. I'm gonna talk about first my favorite man, Steph Curry. This guy, man.
Yeah.
I it's almost beyond words to say how the way he's playing right now, it doesn't make sense how it's better than his unanimous MVP season. Like now I'm saying that we're in week 6. He could fall off, he could taper off, who knows. But coming off the long season they had, and he played at such a high level during the whole playoffs and the finals.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see him come out like this again this year, and
Yeah.
despite the record being so terrible, I mean the stat lines are just insane. I mean he's on pace to get 40 from three, I think 43 from
Yeah.
3%. Unbelievable on 31 a game, 33 a game, I think. I mean, and just the difficulty of the shots he hits has always been amazing, but I just think that when you have that type of player on your squad, it only makes everybody want to play harder. So it's kind of weird that they're not doing well, I
Yeah.
guess, or
Yeah.
not
I
winning
don't
games.
know.
How do you feel about just the Warriors, but I guess like Steph
I mean,
and
Steph.
how well he's playing, but the record doesn't show it, you know?
Right, right. Well, this is one of those things where it's like it's truly not his fault.
Can't be.
He is like one of the games they've won, he's like dragged them to the finish.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
Like
mean, he's getting 250 that one night.
it was crazy. I was obviously watching the Phoenix game and he had 50 and they lost by I think 11.
Yeah.
It's like what do you want? What do you want him to do? And he was keeping them in that game through like the first two and a half quarters. And like it's not just his points, it's like the way he gets it with like just like an inch of space and just bottom of the net. It's just he's one on
Crazy,
one.
dude.
I mean he's the best shooter ever for a reason. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It
But
is
yeah, I
amazing.
think with the Warriors, it's just one of these really complicated situations in some aspects, but in like those aspects being primarily, I think, how do we reintegrate Wiseman? They just sent him back down to the G League. I'm honestly rooting for that kid, but right
There,
now it doesn't look good because like Looney's just
no,
better in the moment, which I think is ironic because they won't play Poole, even though he's better right now. I think
right.
the asterisk being Clay finally just shot well and got like 40, I think like 2 nights ago. But other than that, he's just getting more looks and he's shooting less efficiently.
Yeah. Wiseman does not belong on that team.
Yeah.
He does not fit with them. So they need to get rid of him,
Yeah.
honestly. For
Dude,
the
I'm
better,
like following this like Warriors like kind of like beat like insider. Um Shout out my man Ricky G on Twitter, but
one time.
yeah, he like dies on this hill of like Wiseman is skilled, like give him a chance, but like
He, he's good.
apparently teams are starting to like call about Wiseman because they're like, yo, obviously he's not gonna fit on this team. So
No, he doesn't fit.
yeah,
And
it
it's
will be
not that he's a
interesting to
bad
see what
player.
happens because
He's a good
that could
player.
have been LaMelo, like that could have been a lot of good young guys, or they could have traded the pick for,
Right.
so we'll see what they
Maybe.
do, but like the goal, like the silver lining of them winning the chip, not silver lining is not the right word, but like I feel like the young guys aren't like, okay, we won, like they
They're
still
not
gotta
hungry.
like earn their place in this league. Like Moody
Yeah.
and Kuminga aren't even playing much, like really at all. So
No,
it's like they're really missing like Gary Payton and like those guys right now. Otto, I don't
absolutely.
know how he's been on the Raptors, but
Yeah. He's been like 10 minutes, not really going too crazy, but I mean, we're still trying to figure out how the bench works. I mean, Malachi Flynn's playing decently well
yeah,
as a guard off the bench, but
yeah,
let's talk about your man, Shea.
yeah, yeah. Shea, I
Your
mean,
man.
I feel like we honestly hit enough on earlier, but he's been amazing.
Yeah, you're
Just
right.
so special towards the end of games, and he did it last year too, but I think he had like nearly 40 at the Garden a couple nights ago, and then to follow that up is when he hit the step back three, and just when These are down two step back threes. It's
Yeah,
not like
like these are two win go ahead shots that he's
yeah,
hitting.
yeah. They're not like, oh,
Improbable,
we're not going to OT.
improbable.
These are legit
Yeah,
ice. Like if we lose, I live with it. He's making the shot. It's
he's
amazing.
making.
And it almost makes me think, is the coach being like, go for the win? Because if we don't, we get another L for
I
Victor.
can I could see that because what did they have to lose? They have
Exactly.
all these picks. They have all these young players. Like they're really just trying to like stack up their roster and get everyone healthy. Like this, letting Shea just go, I think is a great move for his career and backing him, letting giving him the green light, like you're saying. Like
Yeah,
that's allowing him to have confidence in his own game, and you can see
crazy.
how that like projects itself onto the court. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think just the last guy I wanted to mention was Ben Simmons because at the start of this year, it's like, what is going on, man? Like,
Yeah,
and
terrible.
it's like maybe people are writing him off too quick because the past couple of games he's been great. He had his first 20-point game in like 2 or 3 years in the most recent game. So kudos to him on that. And the game against Portland prior to that was his first like, double digit scoring game in a while and just shooting better from the field and just hope he can figure it out because like him being good is a large key to like the Nets success. So
He's
yeah.
got to be aggressive. He
Uh,
has to be a threat. Like
yeah.
you can't just be so passive like he was.
Yeah. I was watching the beginning of the Sixers Nets game tonight and he hit 2 free throws and he did like the MJ shrug, which I thought it was just fun to see him laugh at himself, but
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of ridiculous. But yeah, thanks for rocking with us. We're kind of out of time for this time, but
yeah. We're running out of time, but thank you all. Appreciate y'all.
yeah, we'll be back and a little more frequent. So
Yep,
thanks
we'll
again,
see you
and
on the
we'll be
next
back.
one, man. This is four
Enjoy the
quarters with you.
holidays.
4 quarters, baby.
Yeah, 4. All right, good stuff.
Peace.
See you next time. Yep.